first of all, I never got to Israel as a child. I got to Israel in 2006. Then somebody asked me to be on this board. I'd never been on a Jewish board. They also asked my husband, who was probably the one they really wanted. And he said, I'm on every other board, you take this one. And just like you, Melissa, like within 2 years, they said, oh, well, you co-chair major gifts. I knew nothing about it. And next thing you know, you're president, so be careful. I'm just saying.
I'm clear on that.
So at any rate.
N-O.
So at any rate, that's how I got involved. But I did, as soon as I became president, I said to Janice, let's go on this trip. There's a women's trip. And we had 6 people. Then we went, and I met somebody from...
All lawyers.
All lawyers. They did not hold that against us. But I met somebody on McCore who said she was in a speaker's bureau, and I'm a lawyer. I know how to talk. So I said, great, I want to be on McCore. And from there, one thing led to the other. We've talked about Sderot. I had the you talk about life-changing events. Every time you go to Israel, in my opinion, with JNF, there are life-changing events. I was at that opening of Sderot. It was unbelievable to have mothers come up to us and thank us. It's like, are you crazy? Thank you for holding the line. Their children could play outside for the first time in 8 years. They hadn't had a Purim festival. We opened it on Purim. And this is sort of another funny story. I just found out, how in the world could McCore, this big group of volunteers for JNF, go to Sderot to open a playground when we had 15 seconds to get to shelter? And they had never been able to play outside until they built this bomb shelter. The carnival was outside. It was packed. I just found out, I think on the last, maybe it was the McCore retreat where Alan joined us, there was a drone watching. We had no idea that we were being watched to make sure, JNF was going to make sure you're safe. Just like when Margot and I were there. We were safe. We were in shelters, but we were safe. So every time you go to Israel, it's a life-changing mission. So I was with McCore, I think my second year with McCore, on a Jeep ride in the desert with Ezra Robbins, who is truly a visionary. He's a farmer. He's raised his family in the Central Arava. He is truly a visionary. And he said to me, I need help with, actually what he said was the Bedouin population, because Ezra, there's a Bedouin population in the Central Arava that actually fought with Israel in 48. So they're very different than the other Bedouin population. But he said, can you get Russell's attention, get him to come help us? We stopped after that trip, or after that Jeep ride, we happened to be at a pit stop, literally, and Russell was there. Put a little bug in Russell's ear. We got to help Ezra. He needs help. I mean, I'm pretty naive. I'm like, oh my gosh, can't JNF do this? It had nothing to do with me, but simultaneously there was a couple from California who was visiting the Arava within the next year and saw their medical center. And quite frankly, the medical center could have been, you know, in a backwater in Alabama. Sorry. I mean, I live in Phoenix City, so, or a third world country. It's a mess. And so these doctors said to Russell, we need to do something about this. Before I knew it, the next thing I heard was about a year later, they were forming a task force. I was not asked to be on it. I insisted that I be put on it, a task force for the Central Arava. And we put it out as a mission, and literally there were 4 of us. And that's what I mean about individuals. It was me, Becky Fisher, who also is actually coming back now to chair the whole Arava task force, because I am moving to Amsterdam, and 2 other women. And we went and we spent a week with Ezra, his regional council, his kids, his family, getting to know everybody. Because again, we're Americans, we know better, we can tell them how to do it. They knew what they needed. But we really had to get comfortable and fully immersed into what is the Central Arava. Because it's like Russell said, it's not just projects. The Central Arava is a microcosm of absolutely everything, of everything we do in Israel. So that's later. See, you're supposed to say the why, how, and what. But I'll get there. I promise I'll show you where it is. Now that I've completely lost my train of thought, that adds an extra 2 minutes, Ellen, I'm sorry. No, but seriously, I really did lose my train of thought. I don't know what else.
Places on the president's mission.
I'm sorry?
We went to the medical center. And
yeah, the medical center, yeah.
And to where they were building for the Bedouin population.
Oh, good, you got to see that.
Yes.
So, at any rate, so we were, the medical center, I think is what we were talking about. The task force, we started this task force, we went and we met with them, and they knew what they wanted, but then Russell came in the last day, and we really honed down what we could do, because again, as an individual, with Russell Robinson by your side, JNF is the partner of the government. So we went to the Knesset, and we met with the minister of the Negev, and we met with the vice minister, Sylvan Shalom, at the time, and we had the opportunity to say, we need help. And I mean, we literally like pulled it out of the air. We need you to match. We need 4 million shekels for this medical center. He goes, fine, you raise 2, we'll raise 2, match, done. We tried to ask for something else. He said, no. I said, done. Go to the next minister. And the next minister we talked about the mine problem. Because there were mines all over the central Arava, and they're plastic mines. And they were actually placed there by Israel, because before the Jordanian peace treaty was written, it was just sand. It was like, okay, Israel's over here and they're over there. You didn't really know. There wasn't a wall. And so it was mined area. And over the years with flash floods, the mines had spread, and they're plastic. And they're in the desert. So we needed help with that. We told them about that. And within a month, I think there was a woman from Holland actually that came, and they passed a national bill to clean the mines in Israel. And one of the first places they went to was the Central Arava. So what I want to tell you is the Central Arava is located an hour and a half south of Beersheba, and I wish they'd had a mark on here, but it's an hour and a half south of Beersheba, an hour and a half north of Eilat. And because it is a farming community, and there are only 3,500 people, which is why they didn't have the ear of the government at the time, there's farmers. It's small. It doesn't have a big political voice. And when you're an hour and a half located remotely, that's why the medical center was in such disrepair. So when we first got there that first year, there were no doctors. When we left, and this is another thing that JNF is incredibly powerful about, JNF is like the private partner. They start, and the government goes, well, wait a minute, we can do that. So Hupata Ling that gets involved, all the other organizations, medical organizations get involved, and now they're in charge of staffing the medical center. When we went back the second year, we took a team of doctors. There were 2 doctors in the Central Arava when we got there, because so things start happening. But what was also amazing, again, as individuals, these American doctors who knew better than everybody met with the Israeli doctors and said, this is what we think, this is what you need. But what happened was it woke the Israeli doctors up, and we were told this afterwards. They realized they could start being as vocal. You think the Israelis are pretty vocal, but on certain things they're not. They were used to the government doing it. Well, this group of doctors from America and the 2 in Israel kept a dialogue going, and they impacted and changed some of the things about the medical center before it came out of the ground. That's unheard of. And we were just there. Our last task force mission was the 4th one, and we dedicated the medical center. That's life-changing. It was unbelievable to actually be there and see it, and see the rabbi put the mezuzah up, and you've done something. But again, it's just the beginning. And I want to say, because it's not as sexy, perhaps, as Sderot, which is incredibly moving, but it truly is a microcosm of everything. From education. Now, this is a community of 3,500 people. 1/3 are children. There's not a lot to do there. 350 babies born in the last 4 years. 1/3 is the aging population, which by 2020 will be 70 and over, and there's no facilities yet. And what happens in the middle is, again, contrary to us, the kids come home, and they want to be where their parents are. And so, like Ezra's too young to give up his farm, and only the oldest child gets a farm. So if they have 4 kids, there's not enough land there for all of them to get farms. So they're coming home, and there's not enough farmland. And they're also coming home, and they're bringing husbands or wives with PhDs who want to work. So like JNF does, it's a whole vision, and they've got to build the infrastructure, and you've got to build a community. So I feel like we're on our way with the medical center and the medical facilities, and then you go to communities. What did I say? 3,500 families. Okay, 500 farmers. Out of this little arid strip of land, 60% of the fruits and vegetables exported from the state of Israel come from the Central Arava. 10% of the exported flowers come from the Central Arava. They raise and breed clownfish, Nemo fish, and export all over Europe from the Central Arava. They are incredibly innovative and brilliant. And in terms of special needs, 6 to 7% of the school population has special needs. So what you have down here in this strip is this: 7 communities, 5 moshavim, 1 city center, Sapir, and 1 community, Zukim, which has turned into an artist community. It's the first community built within the Green Line, I think, in 24 years. And that's another thing that's really special and unique about this area. There's no dispute. There's none. And as a matter of fact, during the war, families came there and stayed with other families in the central Arava because it was fairly isolated. So we have stuff for artists, and we have stuff for scientists, because there's also a research and development center there. Research and development center, that's where the MedFly solution came out of. And there's an agricultural side, and there's